A warning, there's adult language and some distressing concepts in this story.
I think she knew what was coming.
ELlie Dudley is the Australian's legal affairs correspondent, and she's describing the moment in the witness box in the federal court in Sydney when Brittany Higgins began to cry.
Up until that point, they had been speaking about her interactions with Bruce Lehrmann at the bars before they went to Parliament House, you know, how drunk she was, the fact she was falling over, things like that. But as soon as she got to that moment of talking about an Uber or a taxi or whatever it was pulling up outside the front of the 88 MPH bar and picking up her and Bruce Lehrmann to eventually take them to Parliament House, she really broke down. And I think that's because she knew what evidence she was going to have to give next.
On day 6 of Bruce Lehrmann's defamation action against Network 10 and Lisa Wilkinson, Brittany Higgins re-entered the witness box as a defence witness. 10's counsel, Matt Collins, took her to the sequence of events that led this 23-year-old woman to be working for a cabinet minister. Higgins described herself as an ambitious young staffer thrust into the boozy culture of Canberra after dark. She'd been working for the former Defence Industry Minister Steve Chobo until 2019. But when he resigned, the rumour was his replacement would be West Australian Senator Linda Reynolds. Higgins approached Reynolds staffer Nikki Hamer via Instagram looking for work as an assistant media advisor and arranged to meet Hamer and the rest of the staff for drinks at the Kingston Hotel on March 2. That's where she got to know Bruce Lehrmann, a policy advisor who was also in his 20s. She also met another staffer in the office, Jessie Watton, as they celebrated their boss's promotion to the defence industry job and to cabinet. She said that night the office staff were jokingly trying to keep her at the pub. We've used voice actors to bring you the words spoken in court by Brittany Higgins and barrister Matt Collins.
I was told to stay for another drink.
Who told you to stay?
Mr. Lehrmann.
She described it as a joke.
I could no longer drive because I'd had too much to drink. And then, as a joke, so I couldn't leave and order an Uber, I think that's why Mr. Lehrmann took my phone. I thought it was a joke. He just took it for a period of time so I would stay longer. I just stayed for a bit longer and eventually doubled down and said I really had to go.
Higgins was employed as an assistant media advisor, but she found herself assisting Bruce Lehrmann in tasks she considered menial, including reorganising a staff phone list to put his name near the top and moving an office fridge.
He would give me tasks and I would do them. I felt like I was his secretary to an extent. He'd ask me to do things and I'd do it for him.
Do you remember any other interactions with Mr. Lehrmann in the first week or so?
There would have been a host of interactions just in the day-to-day of the role, but those ones stick out in my mind because they were particularly annoying for me and they took a lot of time. And I didn't necessarily think that it was... I just did it, but I didn't necessarily think it was fair or right. That's why I remember them so pointedly.
She described a social atmosphere in the hard-working office, starting by 7 a.m. and staying until 10 p.m, and a pattern of team dinners and drinks on Wednesday and Friday evenings. The Friday before the alleged rape, she said she'd joined the Reynolds office for dinner at the Kingston Hotel and had what she regarded as an embarrassing encounter with Lehrmann as they departed.
While I was waiting for the cab or the Uber, Mr. Lehrmann came up to me. He came into my space and he tried to kiss me on the lips.
You said he came into your space. Just explain what you mean.
He walked. He took a step forward because we were not standing far from each other. He took a step forward and he tried to kiss me on the lips.
And what did you do?
I apologised. I was shocked. I said no, and he seemed embarrassed, but I just assumed that I'd led him on or something. Like I'd done something.
What made you believe you've done something to lead him on?
I don't know. I don't think so. I thought I was just... I have no idea. I just naturally thought that maybe I'd done something to give him that impression. so I didn't think much of it, and I felt embarrassed by the whole thing.
Why did you feel embarrassed?
I don't know why I felt embarrassed. Actually, I shouldn't have, but I was. I just felt like maybe I'd given off the wrong vibe, like I'd done something, or, I don't know, maybe that I was being too talkative and he got the wrong impression.
And when you said no, what was Mr. Lehrmann's reaction?
Well, his taxi, Uber, had pulled up just around the same time, so he pretty much immediately left.
The night of Friday, March 22, Higgins helped organise drinks at a bar, inviting defence personnel she knew from her role in Chobo's office to meet staff from the Reynolds office, along with other staff, including Bruce Lehrmann and Austin Wenke from Peter Dutton's office.
I think I was trying to show I wasn't just a receptionist. I wanted to demonstrate to these people that I have contacts. I was trying to show the Reynolds office that I had value outside of just the grunt work, so that's why I invited people.
Higgins also invited a date.
I was talking to a guy on Bumble. He worked at one of the departments, and I invited him if he was free to come and hang out with everyone.
She went home from work, dropped her cardigan and parliamentary pass, and picked up a going-out handbag to wear with her white dress.
I think I had a glass of wine at home because I was nervous about my date.
She arrived at a bar called The Dock around 7 p.m, joining Captain Nikita Irvine, Lauren Gain, an advisor to the Chief of Navy, and other staff. She described the Bumble date arriving.
I introduced him to everyone. I recall them being quite rude and mean to him. I think we sat and had a drink. We just didn't quite click. And then I think within an hour or so, he'd kind of left.
The young Liberals were all despondent about the forthcoming election, she said, because new Prime Minister Scott Morrison seemed to have little chance of winning. She said Bruce Lehrmann bought her a drink.
He was nice to me for the first time, and I was pleased with how it was going. He bought me a drink. It felt like I was no longer sort of his secretary. I felt like an equal, and I appreciated that. I felt like we were peers, almost.
She said she had 11 drinks at the Dock and bought herself 3 of those. She even called an ex-boyfriend and close friend during the evening.
I knew that I was getting drunker. I drunk called Ben Dillaway at like 11 o'clock that night, which is something that I would never usually do. I was having to go to the bathroom quasi-regularly. I was apparently like a bit messy and slurring. I was already kind of embarrassing myself. I was very drunk.
She remembers arriving at a karaoke bar, 88 miles per hour, with Bruce Lehrmann, Austin Wenke and Lauren Gain, where they drank at least 1 shot.
I was on the dance floor. I remember going to the bathroom and cleaning myself up. I don't know if I vomited or if I was just cleaning up my makeup, but I was unwell at one point. I felt like I had the potential to be unwell.
Do you have a recollection of any interactions with Mr. Lehrmann while you were at 88 miles per hour?
Yes, I remember him sitting really close to me. I remember him having his arm around my shoulder. I remember him touching me, and I remember having a thought process of discomfort, but not wanting to vocalise the discomfort. So I remember that. I called it handsy. I felt him being handsy with me.
How were you responding to Mr. Lehrmann's conduct?
It was in the field of tolerance. I didn't push him away. I didn't snap at him. It was in the field of tolerance. I was dealing with him touching me. I didn't want it, but I was tolerating it.
And so you described him being handsy. What do you mean by handsy?
He was touching my legs, like my thigh sort of area. I remember him sort of being over my shoulder. Like, I just remember him being all over my space at the nightclub.
Brittany Higgins described entering Parliament House and going into the ministerial suite with Bruce Lehrmann, then waiting on a window ledge inside the office and wondering where he'd gone. That seemed to me like almost the behaviour of a child, so sitting waiting for someone more senior to you to finish whatever they were doing, not really knowing what it was. What was your impression of that?
So she said sort of, I don't know, I guess around that stage when trying to explain her behaviour, and she's saying that because she was really drunk. She says that she can't remember what happened at that stage. Her talking about sitting on the ledge and why did she go into Parliament House with him that night. She was sitting there sort of waiting for him. She said she wasn't sure exactly where he was, whether he was in the kitchen. She said he wasn't at his desk because his desk was in her eye line. She just seemed, like you say, like a child sitting there waiting to be collected and eventually, hopefully, being able to go home.
Brittany Higgins said her next touch point was coming to after being asleep or unconscious on the couch in Senator Linda Reynolds' office. Brittany Higgins was visibly upset as she described that moment in court on Wednesday. We've used a voice actor to bring you her words.
I was late to the party. He was going quite fast. He seemed a bit sweaty, or maybe I was the one who was sweaty. He was very much in the throes of it, and it was very much rough and happening, and it didn't matter that I was talking or awake or whatever. It just felt like he was doing it, and it didn't matter. I was an afterthought. I felt like he was going to climax soon, like it had been going on for a while. You think of a scream and it didn't come out. I was saying to him no, and I was telling him to stop. And there was an urgency to it, but I couldn't scream like you see in a horror movie. I couldn't, and I don't know why I couldn't.
Higgins said she couldn't move off the sofa and passed out again after the assault. She said she believed she was naked or that her dress was hiked up around her waist. She said she woke the next morning, threw up, and then devoured a box of chocolates she found in the office kitchenette to quell the nausea. She said she messaged Ben Dillaway and tried to indicate everything was fine. She also responded, "It's fine," when a security guard came by to ask if everyone was okay.
I think I was just scared and I was shocked. I don't know why I said I was fine.
In the days following the alleged assault, Brittany Higgins said she was just functioning.
So she got in the car on the way home, got in an Uber, and she had an interaction with her ex-boyfriend, Ben Dillaway. She didn't tell him on the phone about what had happened the night before. She then got home, she spoke to her housemates, again, didn't tell them about what happened the night before. She said that she just hadn't processed it. She said she hadn't dealt with it at all and just wanted to be by herself. And then she spent the following weekend by herself in her bedroom ordering Uber Eats. She then told that same ex-boyfriend, Ben Dillaway, and sort of hinted that something had gone wrong when she spoke to her father as well.
Higgins' dad flew in from Queensland for the weekend following the alleged assault. She said she told him something bad had happened at work, but that she didn't want to talk about it, so it wasn't discussed further. Higgins said she was grateful for her dad's presence. She returned to work on Monday morning, where she says she went through the motions in a kind of daze.
I sat at the front desk and kind of had the ability to silo myself and just focus on one task at a time. And so I was just focusing solely on functioning. That's all I was doing. I was just doing the bare minimum to get through. And so I was trying to busy myself with just going about my day. I wasn't talking about it, I wasn't accessing it, it was just doing the bare minimum of what I had to do.
On the following Tuesday, March 26, she saw Bruce Lehrmann emerge from the office of Chief of Staff Fiona Brown and begin packing his things into a box. She assumed he'd been fired. She said Fiona Brown then called Higgins into her office.
So the word she used to me was, "I've been made aware that there was a security breach over the weekend, that the office had been accessed after hours, and that it was in breach of ministerial standards." And that's what was disclosed to me at the top. She then asked me what happened, and at that point I told her that I'd gone out, that I was so drunk and inebriated. I don't remember coming back in.
She said Fiona Brown seemed confused.
It was the first time I'd vocalised it, and that he was on top of me. I said I was barely lucid. And that was the first time I'd ever disclosed the rape to someone. I didn't use the word rape in that first meeting. That was like a confronting word. But I said that I was assaulted, and I said he was on top of me. Well, maybe I didn't use assault, but I said he was on top of me.
What did Ms. Brown say?
She said, "Oh God," but in a nice way. She was shocked and upset, but the way she spoke made it sound like it was the first time she'd found out that there was a sexual element to it.
What followed was a series of meetings with Senator Reynolds' former Chief of Staff, Fiona Brown, and the Minister herself about the alleged incident. She said they both seemed empathetic, and that Fiona Brown walked her down to the police office in Parliament's basement to report the assault. But Brittany Higgins said she felt re-traumatised by a decision to hold one of those meetings in the office where she was allegedly raped. She said Senator Reynolds offered her an apology.
The minister said, "I'm sorry." She said, "These are the things that women go through." She said, "If you go to the police, please keep us informed." She said, "I didn't think he was capable of this." And from that, I inferred she was talking about Bruce.
Brittany Higgins described a dramatic moment in the days after the alleged rape, when the most powerful person in the government, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, John Kunkel, swept into the office to meet with Fiona Brown. Higgins wasn't present for this meeting, but it was after that Higgins said Fiona Brown's demeanour towards her changed. She said Brown refused her request to view Parliament House CCTV footage from the night in question. It emerged in the days after the alleged attack that Brittany Higgins had been found naked in Linda Reynolds' office by a parliamentary security guard in the early hours of the morning. But Higgins says she didn't know about the guard's discovery until a colleague told her about it. She took the Friday following the alleged incident off because she was distraught at receiving that information secondhand.
I didn't know that information before, so to me I was shocked, I was upset. I was really distraught and upset that there'd been someone in the middle of the night who'd found me just after I'd been raped and they didn't try to wake me up or call for help.
Higgins said she felt betrayed by her bosses.
Fiona hadn't disclosed that to me, and it was the first time I really felt this massive amount of distrust with the office because he had this information.
Brittany Higgins said she decided to drop the police complaint because she felt her situation at work made it untenable. And she said she was furious when she heard the minister and her staff speak disapprovingly about staff in another minister's office who had made allegations about bullying.
So Mr. Dillaway had asked, "Anything I can do?" And you said, "No, not really. It's just beyond shitty hearing Linda offering this obviously horrible Wyatt staffer all this support in the wake of the story." And I'm like, I was literally assaulted in your office and I collectively maybe took 4 days off, was offered jack shit in terms of help.
Yes.
That was how you felt.
That was how I felt.